Hey guys, it's Paul Myers, licensed professional counselor, co-owner and lead therapist of Intentional Counseling. We are a group private practice specializing in mental health and therapy. And I'm going to cover some cognitive behavioral therapy exercise that you could do to help identify your core beliefs, okay? So let's look at a previous video that I've done where I've covered cognitive behavioral therapy theory, where a quick recap of that is that if you start out with core beliefs that you have, it'll produce a thought process or thought pattern, and those thought patterns become habits that produce specific emotions, which produces specific behavior. And so we can take that same idea and we can actually work backwards to learn more about ourselves and kind of dissect ourselves and understand more and gain that awareness, okay? Once we gain awareness, it gives us a little bit of power to change the way we think and what we believe, and kind of alter our core beliefs that we possess, which really have a domino effect on the rest of everything else we listed. So this is an exercise specifically to identify core beliefs that you have and be more self-aware and have better thought process, okay? So let's look at some examples that I have written. So we talked about the behaviors, we talked about emotions, we talked about thought or thought process, core beliefs, and then I also added an origin column which will explain where some of those core beliefs came from. I have to go a little bit deeper, right? So this is an exercise where we're starting out with behavior, we're reverse engineering our process here, where we're starting with behavior. Behavior is the easiest of all of this to identify. So it's a great place to start. Well, let's just look at what I did or how I acted, and then we can go backwards and understand why, okay? So let's look at the first example. So let's say, I've come into counseling and because I was openly aggressive towards my coworker, I lashed out at them and I got written up and it was this big event, and so I, was like, maybe there's something wrong and I need to go get some help. So that would be the example of the behavior. So then let's understand why. Why did we do that? Why did that behavior occur? Specifically, the next step is what emotions were underneath that behavior, okay? And so then this particular person, it was anger, frustration. There are many words to describe anger. You're frustrated, you're annoyed, you're irritated. Anger, that's all anger, right? Sarcasm is anger. There's a lot of versions of anger. It's all the same. It's the same emotion, just different words to describe it. But that's really what they're feeling. Then when we identify the emotion, let's understand why. Why do we feel that way? Well, we know thoughts produce emotion. So let's look at what thoughts I was having at that time that produced that emotion. Well, when it come to find out, they had a thought of, well, my coworker should really be working harder, right? I work really hard, my coworker is not working hard, and they should be working harder, and I'm frustrated with them. So there's this building resentment towards this coworker. So it wasn't just a one-off thing, it was this underlying thought process of this expectation of their coworker, okay? And so we've identified some thoughts which would explain why they were feeling frustrated, because they were projecting their work ethic onto their coworker, okay? So then let's look at those thought patterns. Well, why would I have that thought pattern? What beliefs do I have about work or the work environment or anything related to career? What beliefs do I have about that? So let's take a look at that. Well, this person believes that work ethic is really, 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 really important, is of high value, and that all people should really have high work ethic. And so that's a huge core belief that they have for themselves, is that work ethic is very important and very valuable, okay? So that's just a belief they have for themselves, but they also have that belief for all people. So that's the core belief, and this is an example, okay? Now, all core beliefs, most of the time, are subconscious. So we don't usually think of them. They're just there. And so identifying a core belief is helpful because sometimes we have a bunch of core beliefs that we don't even know we picked up from somewhere. But we're living our life by something that we're not even aware of that we're doing. And so it's a very natural thing, okay? So what I like to do is let's look at a step further and let's find the origin of where that core belief came from. Now that we've identified a core belief, it comes from something. So let's identify the origin. So let's look back. Okay, I would ask my client, where did you learn this? Where did you pick this up from? Who taught you this? Where did you get this message that work ethic is this golden standard of importance, right? And so what ends up happening is, well, it was actually their dad, my father. He had a philosophy that he talked about growing up, about working hard and having strong work ethic, and he talked about it all the time. That was his philosophy with work. And so that is the origin of where they got that core belief. So, okay, so now we're at the core of the onion. So we know the origin that produces the belief, which produces thoughts, which produces emotion, which produces behavior. We've successfully reverse engineered it. So now what we want to do is we want to go in and redefine what this origin means to us. Meaning, I get to decide whether or not I want to adopt this core belief or not. And we can actually alter that core belief by redefining what the origin means. And when you're an adult, you have more cognitive ability to kind of restructure the way you think and choose to focus on different aspects and rediscover new meaning and kind of delete some of the old thought processes and old ways of thinking that were just kind of natural at the time. Okay? So that's a great example. Let's look at another one. I've got somebody who has this high level of perfectionism, whether it's work or sports or literally anything. You know, it could be anything. It's just very, they are trying to just be the best at everything all the time. Okay, so the emotion, but underneath that, why? Why are we doing that? What are you feeling? Okay, well, I'm feeling a lot of fear. I'm feeling a lot of guilt. I'm feeling insecure. Okay, so where did that fear and guilt and insecurity come from? What thoughts are you having that's going to produce fear, guilt, and insecurity? Well, they have a thought process that, well, I'll be a more valuable person if I beat my best friend, or if I, beat my neighbor, or if I beat my rival or highest competitor. Okay, I'll be more valuable if I do that, if I accomplish X. Okay. Okay. So we've identified the thought process. So let's look at a core belief. What kind of core beliefs could we have that would produce the thought of needing to be happy or more valuable? Okay. Well, there's a core belief about self, and their self-esteem and self-worth, and becoming attached to approval. So this example of a core belief is self-worth and self-value comes from the approval of others. So it's a core belief that they have that they didn't really know they had. Okay? So where did that come from? Who taught you that you are not valuable unless people approve of you? Well, lo and behold, all through elementary school, year after year, there was a specific bully that this person had, and so that they got bullied by the same person pretty consistently over several years during their childhood. Okay, which is very impactful, very hurtful, very damaging, and it's rejection ultimately. So that did a lot of hurt and damage to their self-esteem, and they started attaching approval with self-esteem. So now they develop this core belief, and they end up becoming perfectionistic in their ways, which produces anxiety. Okay, great example. One more example for you. Let's say somebody who's avoidant of a new opportunity. Let's say they're not applying for jobs, or they're saying no to new opportunities, or they don't want to create change, and so they avoid things that could be really good for them potentially. Well, let's look at why. What feelings do we have? Well, some anxiety and some shame. Well, why are we feeling that? What thoughts are we having? Well, it won't work out well if I put the effort towards that, or I'll just fail, or it's all going to fall apart anyways, okay? So it's kind of the defeatist mindset, defeatist thought process. But what beliefs do we have? Again, this is a core belief about self, where you don't feel smart or intelligent or capable or good enough. So that's a negative core belief about self. Well, who taught you that? Who taught you you're not smart? Well, when I was younger, I had a really impactful teacher or professor that just really was super critical of me, and it really did a number on me and my self-esteem. And I learned and believed from them that I wasn't very smart, right? And so that really hurt them. Okay, so we really identified that. So we could kind of redefine what this stuff means. Instead of saying, well, I am not smart, you could just see, well, this teacher has some of their own personal issues, whether it's their own stuff they haven't dealt with, or they just have anger problems, or they're projecting some of their personal issues. It's really not a reflection of me. It's more just a reflection of that teacher who may be burnt out or have some unresolved stuff, okay? Or same thing with a bully, like, okay, I'm not rejected, I'm not bad, I'm not flawed, I'm not less valuable. Really, the bully, he got abused by his parents in his home life, so he was super insecure, so then he put me down to cope with his insecurities. So it's really his problem, not a reflection of me, okay? And so things like that. Or my dad, he had this really rigid philosophy, but it was a bit, narrow-minded and ignorant and not really looking at all things, and was kind of a bit extreme, on one end of the spectrum where, it ends up being kind of detrimental, like being a workaholic ends up being detrimental, right? So really that's my dad's thing that he is responsible for, not me. I don't have to adopt that philosophy. I can have a better balance in my life, okay? So hopefully this helps you. It's an exercise you could do anytime on your own, but it is definitely better if you do it with a trained therapist, because they're going to have added awareness and insight for you that you're probably not going to be able to get alone, just because we all have blind spots. But it's definitely a healthy exercise if you have a hard time identifying your own belief systems and core beliefs and core values and why you're doing what you're doing, but it helps explain quite a bit. So, all right, guys. Hey, if you haven't done counseling, okay, we strongly recommend you seek therapy. It's great for everybody, even if you don't have a big problem you need to solve. It's just great to do for everybody because we grow and we have additional support. So go to intentional-counseling.com. Either myself or a trained therapist would be happy to help you, either virtual or in person if you live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Otherwise, subscribe. That helps us grow. Comment if you found this helpful, or if you have suggestions that you would like for us to cover. All of that's very helpful. It helps us grow. The more people we help, the better. All right, guys. We appreciate you. Take care.